Hey guys, this is Texas Rails and Racing Productions here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my early 2025 NASCAR playoff predictions. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than how I've done in the past few years, where usually every year before the season begins, I give out my early predictions on who I think will make the playoffs, who will be advancing to each round, who will be eliminated, who will be in the championship four, and who will be this year's champion. But this time around, we're going to do a little something different where this time I'm just going to show you guys who I think will make the playoffs this year, as there could be maybe some changes to the playoff format this year. So, I mean, anything is possible, even though the season starts next month. But, I mean, then again, you never know what can happen. But yeah, I'm just going to show you guys my 16 drivers of who I think will make the playoffs in 2025. So, yeah, let's get started. So, starting off here, I'm just going to mention some drivers who I think will be easy locks to make the playoffs this year. So, yeah, let's get started here. So, some of them I think will be easy locks will be Larson, Bell, Reddick, Elliott, Byron, and Blaney. I think these six will probably be easy locks to make the playoffs, unless of like something bad happens, to say the least. But yeah, but for these six here, I mean Larson, like he just had another great year last season, and I think this year he's probably just gonna get more wins, have another deep playoff run, and I personally think he's gonna make the championship four once again, to say the least. So yeah, I think once again Larson is just gonna have another great season and will make another deep playoff run to hopefully get his second championship. And then next year, which is Christopher Bell. I mean, last year he could have maybe made it into the championship four, but just missed out on it because of what happened at Martinsville. But yeah, I mean, 3 wins last year in a consistent season. I mean, he was probably a favorite to win the championship because it was in Phoenix and he won the spring race there. But again, he just wasn't in contention for the title anymore. But yeah, I think this year Bell is just going to have another good season, and I think he'll have a really good chance of making the championship four and possibly winning the title. But yeah, and then next year, Tyler Reddick. I mean, last year was easily his best year in 23XI so far, and I think this year he'll probably be as like that there again. I mean, I don't have him making the championship four though, but I think he'll be close, and I think he'll win at least a few races in 2025. And then Chase Elliott, I mean, he had a really consistent season last year. I mean, a good amount of top fives and top tens. I mean, even just by having one win, he could have maybe made it to Phoenix if he won like Homestead or even Martinsville, since in the round of 8 he crashed out of Vegas, but he was in real contention at Homestead and Martinsville, but just didn't have enough at the end. But I think this year though, he'll probably have a good chance of making it to Phoenix again to hopefully get a second championship. And then William Byron, I mean, despite having 3 less wins than 2023, since in that year he had 6 and last year he had 3, I think this year though he'll at least win a few races and will probably maybe make it to the round of 8 and maybe even the championship four once again. And Ryan Blaney, he just continues to get better every year. And yeah, I mean, he had about 3 wins last year and made it to Phoenix once again and almost won the championship, but was just not enough to catch Logano at the end. And yeah, and because of all the controversy at Martinsville, we forget that he basically had a walk-off victory, just passing both Larson and Elliott for the win. And yeah, it basically gets overshadowed because of what happened afterwards. But yeah, I think Blaney, though, he'll be a lock to make the playoffs this year. Now to some other drivers who I think will also make it in, but I mean, at the same time, they could maybe miss it, but I think some of them will still have a good chance of making it in. I think these four will probably be able to make it in, but you never know what can happen. Starting off here, we have Denny Hamlin. I still think he'll make it in this year, but if I'm going to be honest here, I feel like Hamlin might decline just a little bit this year, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of changes for him this year. Like, I mean, FedEx and now looks like Mavis Tires have left. And not to mention also he has a new crew chief too. And plus there's even some distractions for Hamlin off track, like whether that be personal stuff or the lawsuit that's going on between 2311 Front Row and NASCAR. So yeah, but I think Hamlin though will honestly win one race this year, to be honest, and yeah, I mean, I think he'll win one race, and I don't think he's gonna make it to the championship four, to be honest. I mean, I could see him maybe being a round of 12 exit, if I'm being honest, because I mean, he's in his 40s now. He's now the oldest full time driver at the moment. Now, if Truex retired, and I just feel like perhaps maybe this could be Hamlin's final year, but you never know what can happen, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I don't see Hamlin making it to Phoenix. I mean, I could just see him as a round of 12 exit and just having only one win this year, but you never know. He could maybe have multiple wins and maybe still have a chance to win the championship. But we'll just see how that goes, at least. And then moving on here, the next one I have making it in is Alex Bowman. I mean, last year was another good year for Alex Bowman after a rough 2023 of missing a few races because of injury and not making the playoffs. But last year was at least an improvement with a win at Chicago and would have been in the round of 8 if he was never disqualified at Charlotte. So, yeah, I mean, he would have been in the round of 8, but that just had to happen. So, yeah. But this year, though, I think Bowman will I think Bowman will win at least one race and will maybe make a deep playoff run. I mean, I don't really know if he'll make the round of 8. I mean, so far I have him making it to the round of 12 and being eliminated, but I mean, you never know. I mean, Bowman's playoff run was at least going well until his disqualification, which ended his championship hopes. So yeah, I mean, you never know, to be honest. I mean, Bowman could have another consistent season. I mean, like, I would say his most consistent year could have been maybe 2020 or 2021. Because in 2020, despite only having one win, he had a lot of consistent moments and made it to the round of 8 and nearly made it to Phoenix. And in 2021, he had 4 wins that year, but was eliminated in the second round. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really count out Bowman, even though some people doubt him of being the fourth guy at Hendrick, and usually people think that he might be the one being kicked for a new driver. But I think though Bowman will at least have a good season this year, probably getting one win and maybe making it close to the round of 8. But we'll just see how it goes. And then the next two I have making it in are the 2 RFK cars of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. I don't have Priest making it in. I mean, he's at least getting an improvement this year, but I don't see him making it in. So yeah, but for these two, I mean, despite having one win for Keselowski and having at least some good moments, I mean, he just had a disappointing ending to his season of getting eliminated in the first round. And yeah, I mean, his last great chance of winning, in my opinion, was Talladega, where he just lost that much to Stenhouse by 6/1000ths of a second. So yeah, I mean, if he was still in the playoffs, I mean, and if he actually won that race, he would have been on to the round of 8, but it didn't happen, to say the least. So yeah, I think though Brad will make it in. I mean, I almost had him out, but I just have a feeling he'll probably win one race and will be in the playoffs once again. But who knows? I mean, after a disappointing ending, you never know what can happen, to be honest. And for Chris Buescher, I mean, he himself lost in a photo finish earlier in the season in Kansas by 1/1000th of a second, and then the next week he just got wrecked by Reddick after a mistake there and lost Darlington. And afterwards he went on to miss the playoffs, but would win Watkins Glen in the first round. I mean, if he was in the playoffs, he would have been on to the round of 12 afterwards, and who knows, maybe the round of 8. But it ended up not happening, to say the least. But yeah, I think Buescher will be back in the playoffs this year, and I think he'll at least get 1 or 2 wins this year. So yeah, I see Buescher making it back in after missing it in 2024. So yeah, but again, I think both and these two RFK cars will make it in, but not Pristo. I mean, he could make it in, but we'll see. And now with 10 spots filled in, we now have 6 more to fill out. So yeah, now moving on to some other drivers here. I think the next one that'll make it in will be my favorite driver, Kyle Busch. I mean, I will say this here, even after a rough year in 2024, I have a feeling he'll make it back in. I mean, I will say, even though he had a lot of bad luck in 2024, he still was in contention for at least a few races, to say the least. Like Daytona, I mean, before he got shoveled out and finished 12th. Atlanta, where he finished third in that 3 wide finish. And even others, like maybe even Las Vegas, where he was leading several laps before getting a penalty. And trying to think of any others, like there was also Michigan, where he led a good handful of laps before getting beaten by Reddick, Byron, Gibbs, and Keselowski, and even not to mention the very next week, Daytona, where he finished second to Harrison Burton. I mean, he was leading the final lap before Harrison got a big push to the win. And then not to mention also the week after that, Darlington, where he chased down Chase Briscoe but just couldn't catch up. Atlanta, the very next week, again, where he was leading a good handful of laps towards the end and looked like he was going to win, but ended up not happening. And also, most notably, Kansas, where he was leading with, I think, around under 30 to go before end up spinning out after contact with Briscoe. So, I mean, even despite those there, he was still in contention for wins last year, even despite having a rough season and not making the playoffs. So, yeah, I think this year, though, he'll at least win some races, but if I'm being honest, I don't really think he'll make the championship 4, to be honest. I don't see it happening. I mean, I would like for it to happen, but I just don't really have a feeling because he's in RCR equipment at the moment. So, I mean, I thought he's my favorite driver. I know I'm being a little biased, but I just think this year Kyle will break his winless streak and we'll be back in the playoffs. And I thought you guys will find out which one of those wins will be in my race win predictions video that will hopefully come out next week or hopefully very soon. I don't know when I'm going to get that uploaded, but the way how I'm going to film it, though, will remain the same of how I've done in the previous years. So, yeah. Anyways, moving on to the next driver who I think will make it in. And let me be honest, I almost had him out, but I think Logano will still make the playoffs in 2025. I will say this here, his title last year was pretty much not deserved, to say the least. I mean, he finished 15th in points and had a 17-point average finish. Even despite 4 wins and an All-Star win, it was just not a good year for Logano overall. I mean, if it wasn't for Cindric spinning out at Nashville and going into 5 overtimes, if that never happened and he just finished like 12th in that race, I think that's where he was running, he would have probably missed the playoffs completely last year, to say the least. So, yeah, like if that never happened, he would have missed the playoffs in 2024 and would never have made it to Phoenix to win his 3rd championship. But, I mean, that's what happened there. Cindric spun out of Nashville, and then we went to 5 overtimes, and then everyone was running out of gas, and Logano managed to stretch the fuel mileage and win the race. But I'll be honest when I say this here. I mean, it's an odd number year, so he's probably going to struggle this year. I mean, I see him winning 1 race, but I have a feeling he's going to be eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, just like how it was in 2023, where he was not consistent enough and was eliminated in the very first round. But I will say this here, I have a feeling that he could also miss it this year, to say the least. Like, this could end up being one of the worst championship hangovers, to say the least, if, like, Logano misses the playoffs. I mean, that has not happened to a defending champion since 2013, where Keselowski won it in 2012 and then missed the playoffs in 2013. So, I mean, then again, anything could happen. I mean, Logano could miss it in 2025, but time will tell. So, yeah, and then moving on here to another one, I think Ty Gibbs will also make it in. I mean, the first half of the year was good for Ty Gibbs, being really consistent and close to that first win. But the second half was just full of DNFs, bad finishes, and a first round exit in the playoffs, which I believe I had Gibbs making it to the round of 12. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I picked Gibbs to get to the round of 12, but being eliminated in there. So yeah, but I think this year Ty Gibbs will finally get that first win and will be in the playoffs once again. I thought it's year three, and usually some of the drivers usually get their first wins in year three. Like, Chase Elliott is one of them, and even Kyle Larson. So it could happen with Ty Gibbs now, to say the least. So yeah, honestly, I'm kind of neutral to Ty Gibbs nowadays, but I think this year is finally that year he gets his first win. And then moving on to another one, I think also Ross Chastain will make the playoffs after missing it last year, after just being non-consistent for the last few races until the playoffs, and with multiple different winners, he just ended up missing out, to say the least. He tried a strategy at Darlington, but it didn't work at the end. But I think this year Chastain will win one race and make the playoffs, but I don't really think he'll be as consistent as 2022 when he pulled that Hail Melon at the end to make the championship four. Not to mention his 2 wins that year and also being really consistent. So yeah, I don't think Chastain will be on that level, but I do think he'll win one race and will make the playoffs in 2025. And now we have 2 spots left to fill out the 16 driver playoffs. And let me just say this here, it was kind of hard to decide these last 2 spots for the playoffs here because, there could be a lot of drivers who could possibly make it in, but some of them could also miss it. But I'll just show the first one here of the last 2, which is Chase Briscoe in the 19. I think this year, though, he'll get one win, to say the least, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets multiple, to say the least, since he's in better equipment than SHR after they were on a downfall for their final few years. So, yeah, I think Briscoe, I wouldn't count him out to win multiple races, but I think he'll at least win one race, to say the least. So yeah, but again, I wouldn't count him out if he wins multiple and possibly make a deep playoff run like he did in 2022, where he made it to the round of 8 and nearly to Phoenix, to say the least. So yeah, I would not count out Briscoe, to say the least, since he's in better equipment. So yeah. And now for this final driver in the playoffs, I predicted him to win twice this year, but I'll just show it in 1 second. But I'm just going to mention some other drivers who I don't have making it in. Mainly, people have been talking about Front Row Motorsports and Spire on the rise now with their drivers and improving their equipment. So yeah, I don't have any other drivers making it in. I almost had Hocevar in the playoffs, but I ended up not going with him. I'll at least be happy if he gets his first win this year, to say the least. I would think maybe his best chance could maybe come like at Homestead, Watkins Glen, and maybe the super speedways. And why I said Homestead was because he had a really good run there in October, so I wouldn't count him out there. So yeah. But, again, I don't have any other drivers making it in, and same with Front Row. But, you never know, honestly. They could at least have some of their drivers, or at least one of their drivers, make the playoffs. But we'll just see how this goes, to say the least. Say the least. But, yeah, But, again, no, I don't have neither Front Row or Spire in the playoffs. But we'll just see how it goes. And then other drivers who made the playoffs last year, like Cindric and Suarez. Cindric, I had him out in the first round last year, but he proved me wrong once again by having a great start with leading a lot of laps at Atlanta. But yeah, and then he, even though he didn't win the race, he was at least consistent throughout the round of 16. And yeah, he could have maybe also won Talladega, but ended up getting crashed at the end. And that basically just did him in for the round of 12, to say the least. And he was eliminated. So yeah, but again, though, maybe this year Cindric will improve even more, but we'll just say the least. I would say, though, if he didn't win Gateway, he would not be in the playoffs again, to say the least. if Blaney had enough gas to make it to the end, Cindric would not be in the playoffs in 2024. And then Suarez, I don't really know how his season's going to go this year. I mean, maybe he'll win another race, or maybe he'll just be consistent enough to make the playoffs. But I don't have him in this year. Sorry, but I just don't have Suarez making the playoffs in 2025. I mean, looks like he's in another contract year anyway, so he'll probably have to improve once again. And then for Colleague with Allmendinger and Ty Dillon, after all, Ty Dillon just he'll probably just have another just year of just being back there to say the least. I mean, watch that be proven wrong and he win a race, but that I highly doubt that to say the least. I mean, I say his best chance of winning a race will come on a super speedway to say the least. So yeah, but we'll just see how it goes. And for Allmendinger, I say his best chance will honestly come at road courses to say the least. I mean, he's won the Roval before in the Cup Series, and he's also won at Indy on the road course and Watkins Glen. I mean, there's a handful of road courses in the regular season, so he'll have a good chance of making it in, along with another driver who I'm going to mention in a second. So, yeah, I say Allmendinger could have a better chance than Ty Dillon, to say the least, because honestly, I think Ty Dillon's just going to have another year in the back of the pack, to say the least. So yeah, I mean, the main reason why Ty Dillon is there is because of sponsorship, to say the least. So yeah, I mean, not that he's a terrible driver or anything. He's good, but he's just not really at that level of Cup Series yet, to say the least. I mean, again, he's not a terrible driver, to say the least, but I don't think he's just going to do good this year, to say the least. I mean, who knows if he'll stay in Colleague next year, but we'll find that out very soon. So yeah. And then for other drivers, trying to think here. I mean, there's also Austin Dillon, which, I mean, if he never did that thing at the end of the Richmond race, or if it wasn't Stenhouse bringing out the caution, he would have been in, but would have been a first round exit immediately. I mean, I don't really see Austin Dillon even improving this year, to say the least. I mean, there could be that possibility where this could be his final season, even though he has a contract through 2025 and then to 2026. But I just got that feeling this could be his final season, but we'll just see, because the last 2 years have been rough on him, to say the least. I mean, last year he finished outside the top 30 in points, to say the least, I think, if I remember correctly. So, yeah. But again, no, I don't see Austin Dillon making it in. Oh yeah, and there's also like others like Stenhouse and now Hayek Motorsports, rebranded from JTD Dory Racing. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't like Stenhouse anyway, but I don't see him making it anyway. Honestly, I feel like his team could maybe go on a downfall, to say the least, now that they lost Kroger and now they rebranded to Hayek, to say the least. But I just feel like this year Stenhouse might go on a downfall, to say the least. And by that, Hayek too. But only time will tell, to be honest. And then for other drivers like Bubba Wallace, he had a good year last year, but just wasn't enough to make it into the playoffs. He was close, but just didn't close in enough. But, I could see him maybe having a chance of making it in, but not quite. Then there's also Riley Herbst, and now the third 2311 car. I'll just say this here. He's not a terrible driver now with 3 wins in Xfinity, but I don't really think he'll be close enough to make the playoffs. Maybe he'll get close to the top 20 in points, but I don't see him making it in, to be honest. He's in Toyota equipment again, and it didn't really end up well when he was in Joe Gibbs equipment in the Xfinity Series, but we'll just see how that goes, to be honest. But yeah, and then there's also Legacy Motor Club. I just don't know how they're going to be, honestly. After a really rough 2024, I don't know what they can do, honestly, for this year. Maybe they'll improve. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Yeah, it was just a rough year for both Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek. So, yeah, the first half with the year, like, throughout the first 10 races, they were solid, to say the least, but the rest was just disaster. And then also Cole Custer and Haas Factory. I mean, maybe he'll be good, and just because apparently they'll have an alliance with RFK, so maybe they'll be good, but I don't really know. But hopefully this time Custer's Cup career will go better than it was in the last 2 years before we're going back to the Xfinity Series. And then Ryan Preece, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, he's at least in better equipment, but I just don't think he'll make it in, to be honest. I mean, maybe he'll be in the top 25 in points, but we'll just see how he goes, to say the least. But yeah. But anyways, though, I'm gonna mention the last driver who I think will make the playoffs in 2025, and which that driver is Shane Van Gisbergen. And yes, I know I'm using an Alex Bowman car, but that's just because the 88 hasn't run since 2020. And yeah, but I'll hopefully get Shane's 88 car very soon once it comes out. But yeah, I think this year though, Shane's gonna at least win 2 races on road courses because he's the best on there. Like, that's his best way to win a race, to say the least. I mean, maybe he'll improve on the ovals, but we'll just see how that goes. But yeah, I think SVG will make the playoffs in his rookie season. So yeah, and which means we'll have 2 Trackhouse cars in the playoffs. I mean, would be cool if they can get all 3 in there if Suarez can make it in, but I don't have Suarez making the playoffs this year. But yeah, I mean, overall though, that right there is my playoff predictions. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, just and also one more I forgot to mention about not making in, which is Josh Berry and the Wood Brothers. I mean, maybe they'll finally improve this year, but who knows, to be honest. I think Berry's best chance of making in is the short tracks, to be honest. So yeah, but again, though, we'll just see how this season goes, to be honest, of who will make the playoffs in 2025. So, yeah, I mean, these are my 16 drivers who I think will make it in. So, yeah. I mean, we'll just see how that ends up by September, whether some of these will age well or age badly. I mean, last year I got 4 wrong and 12 correct, which those 4 I got wrong were Busch, Buescher, Bubba, and Chastain. But we'll just see how it ends up by September, which, yeah, I mean, even though we have a long way until then, we'll just see how it ends up by then. So yeah, and which my race win predictions video should hopefully come out next week or so. Maybe the week after. I don't really know, to be honest. But we'll just see how this goes at least. So yeah, but that's all I have for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys later.